if your business becomes basically more efficient, more profitable, as a good investor, you probably would invest more, right? That potentially is you invest more software, you hire more people to get more out of it, right? To make your business bigger. I kind of feel this take in terms of that I really think, yes, there will be shifts and we need to see how we navigate this, but in the long term, it will foster growth, and therewith you also need more people, right? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Demetri Panici, and I'm a content creator, agency owner, and AI enthusiast. You're listening to the AI Agents Podcast, brought to you by Jotform, and featuring our very own CEO and founder, Ida Tank. This is the show where artificial intelligence meets innovation, productivity, and the tools shaping the future of work. Enjoy the show. Hello, my name is Demetri, and welcome back to another episode of the AI Agents Podcast. In this episode, we have the CEO and founder of Fratch, Philipp. How are you doing, Philipp?
Great to be here, Demetri. Thanks for the invite.
And it's great to have you. I really appreciate you for making the time. And, just to kind of kick things off, you have a pretty unique product, and we'll get into that. But first of all, just kind of give us a little bit of background on who you are, your story, and how you got into what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So my background actually is in management consulting. That's where I kind of kicked it off. And I think there's also the first origin for Fratch, actually, because when I worked in management consulting, we often worked with freelancers. So we basically enhanced our teams with experts like, SEO experts or whatsoever. And from then on, I basically went into freelancing myself and helped large corporations to set up their digital business units. In the midst of the 2010 years, every large corporate wanted to have like a digital unit or some sort of that. And that was partly my job to help them to kick that off. And from there on, I went into freelancing and then founded Fratch roughly 2.5 years ago. And here we are.
Very cool. And what got you into, in general, I know obviously you said management consulting was kind of the beginning point, but what sparked your interest in, the AI kind of portion of what you're doing? Because obviously, you have a product, and I feel like most people nowadays, when they have a digital, SaaS product or platform, it is AI driven. But what really got you into being interested in AI in general?
Yeah, so basically, I see AI more like as a tool, right? So if we could solve the problem which we are solving differently, we would use a different technology. But obviously, as in many other industries, AI is a huge enabler, right? And at the end, what we do at Fratch is we help hiring managers or recruiting companies to find the right freelancers basically within seconds, right? So,
sure.
And what we saw, or what I experienced working as a freelancer myself, and I was on the other side basically, and I worked with these consultancies and recruiters and hiring managers. What I saw was that the process is so tedious and manual, and that so many people are involved and basically trying to find the right person, to find the right candidate, which often was very subjective. So basically, as a hiring manager, it was often actually difficult to get the right person for you because there was some subjective recruiter or a recruiter who didn't have a good day today or didn't have the knowledge about the position. So it was difficult for him to assess the best candidate. And basically what I saw was, okay, it's you can kind of objectify this with AI, and you can make this quicker and faster and a cheaper process. And at the end of the day, what our vision is and is kind of like similar, like, you have Uber and the cab industry or taxi industry. So you have like the cab, which was a very manual thing. You called it, and then later you tried to hire it through the phone, and then somebody ringed up. So Uber took the same product basically and digitalized it, right? And said, hey, we put all this in an app. We make the process way more smoother. We make it cheaper. And this is exactly what we're trying to do with the freelance recruiting industry. And AI obviously is a huge enabler for this, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. People remember, or for people that don't remember, they originally were called Uber Cab. They weren't called just Uber, right? And maybe you were called, you were called Fratch Freelance beforehand, but no. That's a good point, and I think every company is trying to, in spaces like yourself, digitize, products that maybe exist or services that exist. So I guess maybe to give a better idea of the landscape, obviously you said it was hard to navigate. It was annoying. Like, are you competing with or working against, so to speak, companies like Upwork or Fiverr? Like, how do you kind of sit in what a business decision maker is going for when it comes to finding freelancers? Is the reason I'm asking the question.
Yeah, well, I guess we're doing similar things in a different segment. I would describe it this way. So what we are really focusing on is more white collar corporate long-term projects. To give you a concrete example, if one of our clients wants to implement a new ERP system into his company and he needs a project manager for the next 3 to 6 to 9 months, then it's very unlikely that you're going to Fiverr at the moment, because Fiverr, in my opinion, is more focusing on, for example, hey, you have a web shop, you have a Shopify shop or whatsoever, and you want to, you need a logo designed or something similar. So it's much more short-term, much more gig work like, whereas ours is more long-term project orientated. And along with that, so we're working with a bunch of large corporations, especially in Europe. And it's way more complex than just finding the right candidate, right? So that is one big portion of our job, but all the contract compliance work along with that is something which we offer to corporations as well. And that is something which Fiverr, obviously, for example, is not focusing on so much as we do, right? So it's, I think, similar product, to be fair, different segments which we're operating in.
Yeah, and I think it's like hard when you're early on in a situation as such. Where do you go for the where do you go for the right platform or option to give you the best freelancers, and I personally have had pretty negative experiences with a certain, I can neither confirm nor deny. No, I'm just kidding. It's I don't like Fiverr. I do not like Fiverr. I think Fiverr, practically for the purposes that I need it, is not that good. I think that Upwork is a better, more like reputable platform in my perspective. And just kind of speaking from where you're coming from, right? Like, I think I would just love to kind of hear, what is your basic, I don't want to say hermeneutic, that's a little bit too like technical of a term. What is your basic like method as a person who's now started a company that helps people find freelancers, for figuring out why a freelancer would be a good fit for a company?
Yeah. So I think, one of the reasons how online platforms have been designed and why it was probably so difficult for you to find the right candidate on these platforms is that it's kind of overwhelming, right? And it gives you the feeling, or it structures the platform in a way like you're going shopping for shoes or clothing or like your car configuration. So you have this overwhelming inventory of candidates, right? So you're saying, hey, I need a UX designer. And then you have like 40 different UX designers, which you basically can choose from, and where you need to read reviews and stars and compare pricing and what all that kind of stuff, right? So everything basically which a recruiter should pre-sort. So that makes it very difficult for you, obviously, who's not doing the hiring job every day, to quickly assess who's the right candidate and where are the red flags, right? So, and that's why we actually came along with Fredge, where we said, okay, let's design it in a way it's your personal recruiting assistant, right? So, and instead of, you putting in like a search term like project management, by the way, which can be written like in 4 different variations. So you need to write all of that to find the right candidate, basically on the certain keyword. You want to communicate to a system like this, like Fredge, in your natural language, right? You want to say, hey, I'm looking for a UX designer or project manager or whatsoever. And it should then give you a first kind of recommendations in terms of, hey, have you thought about like, how it is with your remote on-site ratio? Where's your company based? So like everything which basically a recruiter asks you should be asked by the system, so that you only get a selection of like 3 to 5 really well fitting candidates, right? So simply by having a system which asks you a bunch of questions, you can already eliminate a bad experience, right? And then think about it, a good recruiter does not throw over or does not send you an email with like 20 CVs or something like this, but he curates basically out of these 20, the best 3 to 5, right? And that is a system which we are building with the help of our AI agent to present to you 3 to 5 really good candidates. And then if you want to have more, you can get more, right? But like you're not getting lost in data. And that's, I think, what the next generation of these platforms needs to do, instead of building this shopping sites which shows you inventory of like 100 different freelancers for the same position.
Yeah, and I guess just to speak back to my experience with other platforms like Upwork and stuff, like it really does kind of put the onus on the person to be the curator, right? And be the curator of that information is very hard. And I guess another issue I'm sure some people are concerned with these platforms is reviews. I don't think it's a secret to anybody that reviews, well, they can be transacted in a way that's not, with the terms of service in mind, I guess, on Upwork and Fiverr. And also people, and that would be like, because people actually buy and sell reviews. But there's also a unfortunate situation, to my knowledge, that people may not give a 5 out of 5 experience, but they'll still get a 5 out of 5 experience because they just kind of feel bad about like how the relationship ended up going. What do you have to say about like how someone can be sure that you're curating the information well, as to how where in the other platforms and the other sourcing, so to speak, it kind of comes from a pool that has already had like a well that's kind of poisoned?
Yeah, got it. So I think to your point, in terms of references can be a valid data point taken into account to assess the quality of a freelancer, right? And we also take this into account, but it's just one of many, right? Still, the problem is that the traditional platforms throwing so much data at you that you have to combine all of these data to get a holistic picture, right? And that's times 40 or 50 candidates, which you see on this page. So I think what AI agents in general do, and specifically in our case, is they are way better at analyzing large quantities of data, right? So to give you an example, in our case, you're looking for a certain developer. So let's say you're looking for a Java developer, right? So an AI is way better in reading the CV and analyzing, hey, out of his 10 projects, there have been 6 Java positions. And by the way, in CVA, the Java positions have been recently in the last, 3 years, versus the other candidate, he had this Java positions like 5 years ago. So actually, candidate A might be even though both have the same years of Java experience, candidate A might be the better choice for you because the knowledge is way more recent, right? So, and having like references, having data points like this, but having also many other data points like skill assessment, weighting, I said location, daily rate, and so on and so forth. And bringing all of these together, so purely by the amount of data, you're just getting a better decision basically made for you, or better pre-selection made for you, instead of you going through the whole inventory again, right? So I think that is a little bit the secret sauce, and that is also why AI, in my opinion, is in so many areas, but also specifically in ours, where we're dealing with large amount of data, right? Just imagine we have CVs which are like 10 to 20 pages long. When a freelancer has been working for 10, 15, 20 years as a freelancer, his CV is like massive, it feels like a phone book. but there's so much, valuable data in there which you want to consider in making the decision. But like for a human, even if you're an experienced recruiter, that is just, undoable. And I mean, probably you and many of your listeners here themselves, I mean, we all have hired people, right? So we all
Yeah.
have seen the stacks of CV, and now bring yourself into the position where you're reading at CV number 1 and you're reading it very carefully, right? And then you're going to number 2, and then you're saying,
Yeah.
yeah. And then by the time you're at number 5, you're like, that will work, and then you have the stories where you hear from hiring managers, oh, the last 10 are not lucky. Basically, they're going to the trash can right away, right? Without even looking at them. So,
Yeah, no, I think you've made some good points here. It's really difficult to sort through all this information nowadays with everything that's being put out. And we interviewed a HR company a little while ago about this that spoke to it pretty well, I think. I don't know if you got a chance to check out the episode, but they made a point that HR right now is battling a battle that I don't think many people maybe think of, which is the more that people are able to mass apply, and not only mass apply, but mass apply to even just general jobs at a very specific prompt-based level. So, you have your job, you're like, hey, this is my resume, can you improve it? This is my resume, can you write a cover letter? HR is having to deal with this. So in the same realm, I'm guessing you're solving a similar issue, which is the freelance issue, which is I'm sure they as well are taking the positions or the project listings and then saying, hey, this is what my skill list is. Can you write me a cover letter or write me a proposal that aligns with this? And that probably is caused, from my perspective, the biggest issue, which is like, you can't even, on Upwork, for example, when I would post a job up there, I was having issues figuring out who necessarily was maybe not reading the job description that well. So I found out this trick from a content creator called Ali Abdal, where he would essentially put a little request to say at some point, like very deep in the cover letter, saying, could you make sure to write blue elephant at the top of your proposal? And that actually told me who was actually good at attention to detail and who was actually looking at the job. But now you can't even do that because they have AI just like noticing it in the thing, in the request. So,
and the applicants are confused why all of a sudden there's blue elephant at the beginning of their resume, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So it's a very intriguing situation that I'm sure you're battling through as, people are getting better and better at introducing themselves in a more preferential way to an employer, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So, I mean, recruiters for years have been complaining about that candidates are mass applying and not individualizing their application, right? And now they're doing it, obviously, and then people are also kind of complaining about it and kind of get it. I think it's, as you said, it's we need to build systems, and some areas of companies are better than others at that. But we need to build systems how to handle and manage the data, and obviously with coming back to the beginning, I think we saw that freelance recruiters and hiring managers, or the systems for hiring freelancers in large corporations, are still often very, very manual. And actually, I mean, this brings or causes other huge problems for organizations, right? So the more manual a job is, right, then the higher the markup on the freelancer's daily rate needs to be, right? Because otherwise, the recruiter cannot really, obviously he needs to live off something. So he tries to mark up the price of the freelancer as high as possible, sometimes 30, 40, 50% on top of the freelancer's daily rate. So, right. And his whole incentive is to do that, actually, because obviously the recruiter who on an operational level works with you is highly incentivized by marking this up, because that's his bonus, right? And I think that is another huge problem which we are solving, is we're bringing transparency into the market, saying clearly, hey, that's the daily rate of the freelancer which he applied with on the platform. we're doing a markup of 10 to 15% depending on the project length. So you have clear transparency actually in many cases for the first time. I know that Upwork and Fiverr, for example, these platforms are doing that already also. But if you're then thinking about really traditional recruiting firms who are working in this space, obviously they're doing everything to hide this markup. And I think that is something where there's also huge potential for large organizations also to drive cost-saving initiatives, obviously, which I mean we all know that is in the current state of things a big driver to become more profitable.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And so I think there's a big lever in many organizations which they haven't pulled actually, although there's huge potential.
Well, I guess kind of fair question probably to follow up. What other like unique capabilities does your platform have that kind of can ease the worries of a business owner on the different fronts of hiring, right? Like obviously, I think there's issues I'm dealing with freelancers a lot of times when it comes to, I know Upwork's at like a 10% markup fee. Yeah. I'm not sure actually what Fiverr's is because I stopped paying attention when I got off there. But that's obviously one component to it. There's other components like, and this goes both ways, right? Maybe we're speaking it from the business perspective, but also the freelancer's perspective. Is there anything from from either side that you feel like you do much better than your standard option? Geez, sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there are many points. I mean, let's take it's very simplistic, but let's go with the freelancer first, right? So what we're seeing at many platforms or application systems is that you as a freelancer, you're being basically asked to register on the platform and then basically please upload your CV. And then after uploading your CV, you're being asked to basically copy paste all of your CV into the fields of the platform so that they can generate a profile out of it, right? So what ends up happening, and we were able to benchmark this actually, that obviously it's a very very stupid and monotone work. So people start making mistakes and people get bored. So they do not upload their whole CV, right? Or do not copy paste their whole CV into this. So what we did to solve this is actually that we use AI to extract all the data from your CV and automatically generate a profile for you with a current accuracy of like 95 to 97%. So, but which also means is that we have often way more data than other platforms of the freelancer because he had not to put it in himself manually, but we extracted it through AI. And thereby we have way more data about the freelancer and obviously then can make better or can take more data into the decision process, right? Or into the matching process. So I think that is a huge improvement lever actually. So what we see on the other side is, and that's why we build it kind of like a ChatGPT-like agent, is if we're really being honest, when a client first comes to us and uses ChatGPT, our AI agent, they kind of know what they want, but they do not really know what they want. So, I mean, authors probably know it. Like there's this term, blank paper problem, right? So you're sitting in front of a blank paper or blank page, and then you need to start writing and you do not really know what to write. And then once you're in the flow, or once you have the first like 20, 40, 50, 60%, it feels much more easier to improve, to think forward, right? And that's exactly where we help, for example, hiring managers as well. So you're coming to us, you're going to our AI agent and say, hey, I need a UX designer for developing a streaming app, for example, right? So our AI agent takes this information and says, okay, based on the information I have and past project descriptions I did within this area, this could be a project description which I would use as a basis to look for profiles, right? But please consider you might want to add further details like I don't know in which area of the company are you working in? Where's the position based? Is it remote? Is it on site? What's the daily rate? And so on. Is it like full time, part time, whatsoever? Right. So we are helping actually the hiring manager or the HR department to structure the project description way more detailed, so that you get the results quicker, which you really want to have, better quality results quicker, basically, right? So there we are helping on the other side, and then bringing these two pieces together. So better project description with actually better data, because the freelancer has more accurate data uploaded. We then bring together basically the better product, and that is a better matching results than an average human could do, actually.
I guess just kind of on a more general level, right? Obviously, we talked a lot about your product and that kind of stuff. What do you think some of the biggest trend shifts are that you're seeing in regards to hiring with freelancers, right? Like it's almost seems like in the market, right, for these different early stage business owners, I'm guessing you're going for people who are probably smaller, medium-sized businesses that need some help but don't need employees, right? What has the impact kind of been with AI agents on freelance hiring or even full-time hiring from your perspective?
I think, and that's no news. I think we are seeing, obviously there will be freelance positions in my perspective, which will not exist in 2 or 3 years anymore, or not in that quantity, obviously. And we see it ourselves, right? So things which we have hired freelancers for, we can now do with AI, right? Or at least part of it with AI. So, but that being said, I think as we have seen, like in the past technical revolutions, starting with the steam machine, right? They will always evolve something new out of it. So I'm pretty sure that when we are looking down the road, that like in 5 to 10 years, we are working with more freelancers than we do today. And there's another reason which I want to emphasize there in a second regarding this. But what we see in the really short term actually is that organizations start working more with freelancers in very specific fields, because there is a lot of preparation work to be done to basically set up these AI systems, right? From getting your data structure right, getting your data cleaned up, getting the systems connected, right? So, and that is all positions, obviously, where you do not want to hire full time, because once you have set it up, then you do not need a full time position for that, right? So what we see actually right now is that a lot of companies are hiring a lot of more freelancers in this specific area to get it set up, actually. So, which then will basically lead to the next phase, in my opinion, where I say, okay, I potentially hire less people because, I'm being more efficient with the people I have in-house and on my AI systems. But then again, new jobs from my perspective will emerge. And there was, I recently listened to quite interesting thought. That was like, if your business becomes basically more efficient, more profitable, as a good investor, you probably would invest more, right? That potentially is
yes. Absolutely, yeah. That's a good point.
More software, you hire more people to get more out of it, right? To make your business bigger. So, and that is kind of or I kind of am like, I kind of feel this take in terms of that I really think, yes, there will be shifts and we need to see how we navigate this. But in the long term, it will foster growth, and therewith you also need more people, right? And
yeah, no, I think this is a great point. Actually, this is one of the better answers I've heard on the subject, because a lot of people will say what you said at first, which is true. Like, probably jobs will go down in some ways, or they won't want to hire as much. But the phrase is always then uttered, well, maybe there'll be more entrepreneurs. Right. And that is actually one of the more clear explanations I've heard, which is like, well, those would maybe be software entrepreneurs, right? As an example. I haven't quite heard any examples usually when I give that question. So that was fair. Because one would ask the question, yeah, well, what am I using the these employees, like who's going to pay these entrepreneurs, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would be the same companies that are saving on hiring, and maybe some of those people had an idea they always wanted to go after. AI helped facilitate them build a one-stop shop solution for a specific thing, right? And that's the nice thing about SaaS building now, I think, is that if you want to get really good at one thing, you can build something out now. In a lot easier of a way than previously. So that's a fair point. And maybe we'll just see a lot of smaller companies, but it doesn't mean we'll see more companies though.
Potentially. And I think there's one other huge aspect which we haven't even touched on is, I mean, all major economies, including the US, not as strong as Europe, Asia, all of them have a huge issue with demographics. So what we're seeing in demographic data at the moment is that all of these parts of the world are actually declining in terms of number of people, right? So
yeah, it's true.
So, and that is nothing which is now like 60 years away. Actually, especially in Europe, this year in Germany, the generation with the highest birth rate ever in Germany goes into retirement. So what we're seeing is actually that we need to make the existing companies and systems way more efficient just to get status quo, right? But that also means for these companies, it will be way harder to hire people permanently and make fixed hires. So one solution, so obviously there are two solutions to this, right? Either you can automate the whole thing through AI, for example, or alternatively, if you do not get it automated and you do not get somebody hired for this position, obviously you want to, bridge it with a freelancer until you have automated it or until you found the person which you permanently hire for this position, right? So from my perspective, actually, that was one of our main foundations why we said, let's make a company out of it, because we think that you can look at it in the short term, and obviously freelancing is highly volatile and dependent on the economy. But if you look at it from a long term and with the demographic development, which you see in Europe, in the US, even in China, or especially in China, to be fair, there's such a massive opportunity because you need then systems to quickly bridge the gap. And obviously, as you said, we have more data, we have obviously then potentially more people, maybe more small entrepreneurs, freelancers, whatever you want to call them. So having systems and an operating system to get these people quick on board and into your organization, I think can be a key success factor for any company, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I definitely think so. And for me, yeah, it's always I hadn't even considered the birth rate thing, by the way.
It's a huge
I consider it. I consider it generally, but I actually have never considered it for business, which is funny.
Yeah, but it's actually I read a book on it recently. Unfortunately, I would recommend it to you and your listeners, but it's unfortunately in German. But it's stunning how that is impacting. I mean, obviously, the people, countries get older in general, but that the impact of it economically, I mean, is huge. So, I mean, I was discussing it with a friend lately who's working for a cell phone company or a telecom provider. And I was saying to him, look, imagine like you're operating in a market which is 100% like satisfied, right? So there's like every person has a cell phone contract. So imagine in Germany, you have 10 million less people that basically, and you're operating in a business where you're not like can increase the prices like that, right? Because there's so much competition. So like for a lot of businesses, this will be a huge impact. Like how do you mitigate this like declining factor, right? Because it will decline your top and bottom line actually, and it's stunning.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. You think of the cell phone company. Yeah, it's like, all right, well, they're just gone. Vodafone's like, what are you doing? Have more kids.
Where are you guys? Right.
Vodafone is the primary like European, right? Is that for like cell data?
You got Vodafone, you got Telefonica or O2 here.
All right, I'm a little cultured.
But
I'm a little cultured. That wasn't bad.
yeah, there was
Actually, you could send me what it is. I can. I can't speak it that well, but I can lazen a little bit.
it's called. I can say that maybe you have one or two German listeners. It's called Die große Arbeiterlosigkeit. So
Okay.
it's basically it plays a little bit with the words. So usually say there's always the fear of having too much unemployment, right? So the too high unemployment rate, but it basically twists this around and says, well, the great lack of workers.
Yeah.
Translated, and then it takes examples from. It's a really good book. I mean, highly recommend.
For sure. No, for sure. Appreciate that. Well, I think we're at in the conversation. That's, I guess I'd just like to ask to kind of close things out. What would be your one last closing statement on why everyone should check out Fratch, and what necessarily anything else you have to say is about, freelancing and hiring freelancers and whatnot?
Sure. I mean, let's start with the freelancers. So why should they do that? Because I think it's definitely a no regret move. The sign up takes less time than my pitch right now. So you basically just put your name, email address, and upload your CV, and it's basically for free for freelancers. So take a look at it. Nothing to lose. I think on the hiring manager side, just think about the process next time when you're hiring a freelancer and you're writing an email to your recruiter or talking to your HR department. While you're doing this, you basically could already have the first candidate on the phone if you like that, right? But while you're writing, the time to take to write this email, you could already be on the phone with the candidate on our platform. So
nice.
And you're saving money basically. But
save money, save time. Usually two good value props.
Exactly.
We like that. All right. Well, Philip, we really appreciate having you on the podcast. So make sure everyone here to leave a like, subscribe, but also, of course, make sure to go check out Fratch, and the domain for that, so you guys will know where to go, is fratch.io. That's fratch.io. Fratch is the leading AI-powered freelancer recruiting assistant out there. So if you guys need any help in that realm, please make sure to go check it out. Thanks for listening, and please make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thanks for having me, Demetri.